What's up? What's up? What is up? Another Friday, another opportunity to get together and bring the crew in the building for the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. We are the crew, and we do it one way and one way only: rough, rugged, and raw. Today's topic is silent moments. And we decided to call it silent moments because this has been a heavy week. It's been a heavy week in the sports business and entertainment community, but especially when you think of the Goliaths. Heavy week when you have to, unfortunately, put a Goliath like Bill Russell to rest. A Goliath on the basketball court, but even bigger when it came to social activism, impact on communities, where we stand athletically as professional athletes when it comes to race relations. It's been a hard week when you have to also say goodbye to the greats like Nichelle Nichols. That sister did her thing on Star Trek. Vin Scully, the voice of the Dodgers. Been a long week. And so, on the Ball Hog Sports Talk, we normally do a moment of silence. But this week's episode is going to bring it all together because in silent moments, not only do you reflect upon someone's legacy and their life and their impact, in silent moments, you find out a lot about yourself. And in these silent moments that we will discuss today, you know how we're going to do it. We're going to bring it all together, and it's going to be a phenomenal show. If you have never been a part of the experience that is the Ball Hog Sports Talk, welcome. We ask you humbly to like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know, because with no further ado, let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke, because this is the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. So come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go. Mic check, microphone check, 1, 2. You know how we do. I was going to freestyle, but I ain't going to do that to y'all. Freestyle Friday, nah, I ain't going to do it to you, baby. You know what it is. It's the crew we got from the Central Time Zone. None other than our guy. What's up, Big Flow Show?
What's good, America? Let's go. Big weekend.
I like that, man. I could tell you excited. You know what I mean? I'm feeling your energy.
I'm trying to get hyped up because I got to drive 7 hours. I'm trying to act like I'm hyped about it, but
What's your go-to? I'm a sunflower seed guy. Some people do like the what are the things called, the skins, potato skins. What do you do? 7 hours? You trying to stay awake? What's your thing, man?
I'm riding with wifey, man. So right now I'm just thinking about how we can do the climate control and not have an argument. And that's all I'm focusing on. Make sure I have ample. Maybe she might let me get one of the cup holders. You know what I mean? She might not take both.
Good luck with that, man. Good luck.
So that's what I'm thinking. I focus on skins. That's you going way.
Yeah, I'm going back.
Yeah, way past that.
Reflecting on old road trips with Mom Dukes. And we also got in the building, you know what it is, from the East Coast, none other than our resident Boston expert as he dons his Celtics hat, none other than ETP. What up, E?
What's good? Happy Friday. What's good, rest of the world? And it's good to be back, man. I've been road tripping a little bit myself, so it's good to be back on screen.
Yeah, man. Good to see you back, even though you got on that hat, but I digress. But with that hat on, how dare we not at least take a brief moment of silence? Because today's episode is called Silent Moments. And we talked about, we do it a lot when we are trying to pay respects to the greats. Some might argue that the greatest of all basketball players this week, we are celebrating his life and his legacy, Bill Russell. And with that hat on, And with this moment, let's just do a very brief moment of silence. And I mentioned them in the opening, all the people that we lost this week. Let's do a very, very brief moment of silence. As you know, last week, man, we talked about my Aunt Brenda, and we did a moment of silence for her. And here on the Ball Hog Sports Talk, we always do it, but collectively, we just thought about like the significance of it. Why do people actually do those moment of silence? And it's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of respect, reverence, and to appreciate all that someone has done. And so in this week, especially as my man ETP wears that hat, we got to reflect on the legacy that Bill Russell was able to cement both on and off the court. We can start on the court with 11 championships. Anytime you're in the barbershop and that conversation comes up, who's the GOAT? The first thing that comes out of said person's mouth, 11 championships. Never lost when making it that far. Out of 13 seasons in the NBA, he walked away 11 times with the ultimate prize, a championship.
The best.
The best. 5-time league MVP. A career 15-point, 22.5. You heard that right. For those in the back of the room, 22.5 rebound guy. At one point, I think he was number 2 high jumper in the country, number 7 in the world. Athletically, just was crazy. I've been finding myself watching NBA TV, looking at old games, looking at old documentaries, and all of the things that has been devoted to his life. I find myself reflecting on it. And every time I see another show, I'm more impressed with what Bill Russell was able to do. 2-time NCAA champ, 12-time All-Star. You can go down the list of things that he did on the court, and now we got to say it. Is it too soon? Absolutely, but this is GOAT talk. We've almost disrespected some of the NBA greats because the GOAT talk has been reduced to 2 people. But this morning, we ain't even going to mention either one of those people. Have we been doing a disservice to the GOAT conversation by not putting Bill Russell in it? And I'm glad to see this week, it seems like we're pivoting and changing. And people are finally getting paid. And that's why they say give him his roses while he can smell them. But legacies in basketball tend to change after you die. Here we are. Is Bill Russell the GOAT? We got to start with ETP. He got on a Celtics hat.
So I'll give you the punchline, and then we can talk about if he's a GOAT. But he's undoubtedly the greatest human being to ever play basketball.
Okay.
Whether or not he's the greatest basketball player of all time, we could debate that. But considering everything that he overcame, the time that he came into the league, what he accomplished as a player, as a coach, I mean, the only person in NBA history that won an NBA championship as a player and a head coach at the same time. First black head coach of any major sport or any major sports team in the country or in the world, ultimately. And beat Will Chamberlain many times, right? Like, he arguably the greatest defender of all time. And he basically made, first all black starting 5 in the NBA. So just the amount of work that he did on and off, the Cleveland Summit with Muhammad Ali when he was basically stripped of his title for not entering into the draft, just the amount of, civil and human rights work that he did, just his legacy goes beyond basketball, but even in basketball, he's done things in basketball that still has never been accomplished. Like, who else is averaging 22 rebounds a game for their career? Who else has 5 MVP. Who else coached and played and was the captain of the team and won back-to-back championships? He has the most championships of any player, and he's I didn't look this up, but I'm assuming he's at least in the top 20 for coaches, most championships by a coach. Like, how many coaches have two NBA titles?
And how many of those guys were sweaty at the end of the game?
Right.
Let me show you how to do this. Come on, let me show you.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I stand by undoubtedly greatest human being to ever play the game of basketball. Whether or not he's the greatest player, he's on the Mount Rushmore. It's no question in my mind. He battled. You could talk about the talent was less back then, but I mean, he battled against Wilt. We have recency bias and we don't have as much footage. But anytime you look at any of this footage, there's some highlights in there where it makes you think that maybe he could play today. Maybe Wilt Chamberlain looked like he could play, and he shut down Wilt Chamberlain's title run for many years, 11 out of 13. So Bill Russell was the perennial, champion.
Facts. You can't hear me discount any of the things that you said. What I found interesting, you talked about the Cleveland Summit and the response to the title being stripped from Muhammad Ali. And I also think we shortchanged him, not only in terms of what he did on the court, but off the court. Because while I like LeBron, when the GOAT conversations happen now in barbershops, there's always going to be somebody fresh off of cutting his own grass, fresh off the lawnmower, telling you that LeBron's the best because of all he does in the community and his social activism. And again, even when it comes to social activism, we have recency bias. I have no issue with what LeBron does in the community. I love it. I love the fact that he's done this charter school and he speaks up. But it's a lot easier to speak up and be woke for the people in 2022 when communities around the world, both in person and online, are busy virtue signaling. It's okay to be woke. It's like a thing. It's like remember we used to pop our collars and wear them up? Now being woke is a thing. Bill Russell was woke when being woke could cost you your life, cost you your career, cost you your safety. So even when it comes to those conversations, I think we shortchanged what Bill Russell was able to accomplish and what he means, the impact. As I hear you rattle off all the things that he did for the game and for society, the word that comes to mind is impact. The impact that he had. Now, we've got a lot of impressions now when our professional athletes are woke because it's really easy to get impressions. You got umpteen million followers on respective platforms. You have impressions. But I'm not so certain that these guys, LeBron included, even come within the same stratosphere, within the same universe when you talk about impact. I'll throw it to you, Big Flow Show. We got GOAT talk, man. We're paying our respects in this episode of Silent Moments. Let's not be silent in this particular moment. Say it with your chest. Bill Russell as the GOAT. What say you?
I mean, the difficult part is always going to be the timing, right? When you look at the chances, right now we can still call Biggie and Tupac the greatest because you can just go back and listen to their music and enjoy it. You're not going to go back and watch Bill Russell's basketball games. I mean, where are you going to find them? How are you going to go do it? So everyone has to compare Michael Jordan that you watched, that wowed you, that you tried to emulate, that you got to see live for the first time, which is, a lot of the adult world now, and compare it to somebody who is just folklore, really. You hear about it, you go back if you take the time to study it. But when you start looking at the statistics and say, like, this dude, no one has dominated a sport like this guy has. And you could argue, one of the best player ever is the one that he was going against. I mean, when you say Wilt Chamberlain was out there, who was, more than a generational talent, arguably the GOAT. you were winning your championships while he was on watch. You know what I mean? Could you imagine what they would say if somebody won all their championships while Jordan was playing, or like with LeBron? You know, people have been sharing them with LeBron around, but imagine if one person just kept beating LeBron all the time, even if they didn't have the stats. I think also what hurts him is because he's got more rebounds than he does points. And let's face it, everyone wants to see the person score. But the dominance and the impact of the game, being able to rebound as well as he could and play as much defense. I kind of have a hard time with the fact that there's less teams. ETP made a great point before the show that, maybe that's more of a concentration of talent. Maybe the game wasn't there yet, but if you think about it, 1969 was his last championship. I mean, when did the league get to 32? I feel like all these teams have been here. You know what I mean? I was born in 73. As long as I can remember, we had most of these teams. Mm-hmm. When we had I don't know when the league tripled. So I don't know if you guys know how many it was like in 69 versus 57 when he won his first one. How many teams had been added? But I can't
total
imagine.
Teams. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Something tells us that our resident audience, that our supporters in the Ball Hog Sports Talk world, will let us know in the comments. But
because something about that seems like, God, when did we just all of a sudden wake up and have 33 teams? Or is it 32 teams? 32 teams. And so
there's 30 teams.
30, huh?
There are 30 teams right now.
32 football teams. 30 teams.
32 football teams. Yeah. 30 NBA teams.
Got you. But
there were
when
eight,
did we just
in 1956 there were 8 teams.
So that's what kind of hurts it. You know what I mean? Like he's like.
So you're saying because there wasn't more competition, that when we're having GOAT talk, we gotta at least analyze. Does that hurt?
I mean, 8 teams is like a dude you can't get off the court at the Y. Really?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like it's like the WNBA, right? Like, and then when he retired in '69, they had 14 teams. So still not a lot, but that being said,
it speaks to the popularity of the sport partially. You know what I mean? Like,
our man Jay Crit, thanks Jay Crit. He talked about the merger, ABA and NBA merger in the 70s, and so that's when the multiplication happened with the merger. So,
and I think that went to like 24, and then had expansion teams after that.
Thanks, Crit. I'm sorry. I don't know why I didn't think of that right away. But back then, the ABA was considered an inferior league, right? At the point,
they were just very top heavy. They didn't have as much parity.
They didn't take all the teams.
Right. Mm-hmm. They took the best teams that they thought could actually compete. But go ahead.
At the end of the day, 11 championships in 13 years, 2 years as a coach, 5 times being recognized as the MVP. During the time period he was recognized. I mean, I don't want to turn everything into a racial conversation, but you can't ignore the fact that he's doing this in the 50s and the 60s. To be respected enough in a city like Boston, to be showcased.
Here we go.
Transition. A city like Boston, to be that town, to have the first NBA black coach as a player coach, just shows you how good you had to be that you could be accepted to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was he accepted? All right, so now I got to go back.
It happened. And so I'm saying, and that was the day when they had the unwritten rules of, 2 at home, 3 on the road, or 4 if you're losing. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew that. And so for him to be able to make that,
you want to explain that rule more?
Yeah, you could the rule, the unwritten rule that you could play 2 black kids on the court at one time.
Yep.
At home, 3 on the road, and 4 if you lose. So you know what I mean? But we're supposed to keep this sport as white as possible. For you to do that in a place like Boston at the time period that he did, whether people booed or not, the fact that the owners are like, I don't care. He is our best option. We're going to go with this. And for him to win a championship through all that stuff, that speaks a lot. I think that can easily get missed.
So we threw something out there.
Bill
Russell's daughter, about the city of Boston. It has been well documented that let's call that relationship between Bill Russell, rest in peace, and the city of Boston. Let's call it,
contentious.
We'll call it contentious. All right, I don't know how you want to describe it, because when people die, all of a sudden, like, we forget.
So
and his daughter said that they had to sleep with a pistol, basically, because was he really
accepted? Slept with a pistol.
I got 3 on me right now. But no, all right. So let's put it into context, right? So first first black starting five during the civil rights era, was very vocal, was at, the March on Washington, was at the Cleveland Summit, wildly vocal, right? He wasn't Jackie Robinson in the way that he operated, right? Jackie Robinson had to kind of toe the party line, be composed, all of that. And then the 60s come along. Bill Russell becomes an athlete who also has this platform in a historically segregated and racist city of Boston. First starting five, black starting five in the NBA, in any sport. First black head coach in the 60s. So it was contentious, right? But I will say, so we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm still gonna stand by it in terms of like fan bases today. Like, no, Boston is not the most racist. Is Boston a racist sports town? Sure, every sports town is racist.
Who's
like
worse?
Everybody. But I'll come back to it. But I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna be the soundbite, and I'm gonna get taken out of context. I'm gonna say Boston is the most racist sports town, specifically because of how little acknowledgement at this stage of the game Bill Russell is given all of his accomplishments, given what he did for the sports landscape of Boston and sports in general. Like, growing up in the area, it was like there was before Bird and after, there was after Bird. Like, there was not a lot of recognition.
Havlicek steals the ball, right?
Yeah, Havlicek, and it's like actually Sam Jones stole the ball and Havlicek picked it up, right? So there was always this dynamic that, like, these black athletes, like, we didn't talk about Bill Russell. Like, I didn't really appreciate Bill Russell as an athlete and as a man and as a historical icon in the ways that I do today until later in life. Like, we didn't grow up. It wasn't ingrained in us. Like, if you live in New York, Derek Jeter, you don't think about anything other than Derek Jeter or Babe Ruth or, whatever, whoever it is. Magic Johnson, Jerry West in LA, like these historic icons that just they represent the city. Bill Russell just got what?
Julius Erving in Philly with Allen Iverson. You didn't feel that was ever the sentiment in Boston when it came to Bill Russell? Because Bill Russell
didn't get a statue until Obama forced their hand. Like, that's what I'm saying. So I will say, as a whole, Boston, I will right now say Boston is the most racist sports city, just the way that they have disrespected the legacy of Bill Russell. And I know it was contentious because, I mean, he's quoted as saying, I play for the Celtics, I don't play for the city of Boston. Obviously, he dealt with racism. They vandalized his house, but also he boycotted in the playoffs in 1961 in Kentucky when they were on the road and they couldn't go into they couldn't enter through the front of the hotel. Like, there's a history of racism everywhere, but just the way that Bill Russell does not, like, I should not have had to do my own research. I should already, coming out of Boston,
they should be teaching it in
I
school.
should love, right. Like, he is a national hero, and especially as a local hero. And for me to not have been given that, like, immersive education about Bill Russell just shows that it's been so revisionist history because of whatever the dynamics were of the 60s. But Martin Luther King wasn't well liked. His approval rating was like 40% or less before he died, right, in the 60s. So you put that into context of a black sports icon in a historically segregated and very known to be racist city, that's what you're going to get. But today, the fact that today it's still not recognized, like, I can't, any city, if this was Philadelphia, if it was Chicago, if it was LA, if it was Tulsa, Oklahoma, if it was Seattle, if any city that had Bill Russell in it treated Bill Russell the way Boston did, I would say that's the most racist sports town in the country because they disregard him, and his legacy is unmatched, unparalleled, unprecedented, and will never happen again, ever.
Well, I just want to say, my brother, from the bottom of my heart,
you agree Boston's the most racist sports town.
For you to be able to come to grips with that as you wear a Boston hat just shows that we are very layered. While you are a Boston fan, and I tease ETP, he's also an activist. He's an outspoken person. But I think that is the challenge that all of us as sports fans have to deal with, is the reality that you're conflicted sometimes. And Bill Russell, because I mean, they tried to retire. They retired the jersey. He didn't even fly to the city when they tried. There's so much there that's there, so much history that's there. And I just want to say in this particular segment, before we move on, because silent moments, right? You talked about Dr. Martin Luther King, who always said, the time is always right to do what's right. Bill Russell was never silent in moments where he could have been, and in some people's opinion probably should have been, remained outspoken and spoke up for our Black community, our opportunities and our rights, and I respect him for it. He was a leader amongst men. He was a pioneer. He was so much more than a basketball player. And so I hate that he had to pay the ultimate price with his life in order for us to be having these conversations. But I hope that also that this new generation of woke athlete, and woke means you just tweet something and deal with the backlash of your tweet. I hope they can really take a page out of his book and we can start advancing our causes with more substance than just a whole bunch of tweets. I'll give you guys any final words. ETP, as a Boston Celtics, I feel like, I'll go to you, Flo, because I feel like the last word about Bill Russell should come from ETP. Any last words on the topic, celebrating our guy, Bill Russell, the captain himself, in this episode of Silent Moments? Any final words on it?
No, just I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm glad that I was motivated to go and look at some stuff that I didn't look at before. And I think that, just in the sports world in general, you're stuck about what you see in front of you. And I think that, we don't appreciate the forefathers, you could say, of the sports as much as we should. And we should change it now. Now we can go back and see it. Hopefully they put out some highlight clips. I mean, I know we talked about Will Chamberlain. I started looking at some of his highlights. And I'm like, oh my God, this dude could really run the court.
NBA TV is showing a lot of Bill Russell's games, and it's interesting because I have my sons who anybody who watch the show knows they're heavily involved in AAU basketball. I had my son sitting down watching, and the first group of games was in black and white, and then at the tail end of it, they were color. It wasn't HD by any means, but it was a color. And my sons are sitting there like, "Yo, the last one was black and white. Why is this one color?" So we got a history lesson while we're watching Bill Russell. He played for that long, was that dominant, and was that meaningful to the game.
He played since radio. He played since the games were on the radio.
Straight up. Like, you know what I mean? And I'll say this before we get off the topic, because y'all remember LeBron James, someone else who has always been in the GOAT conversation for the last several years. Y'all know that gentleman. You know Michael Jordan.
I thought you were talking about me. My bad.
You say?
I thought you were talking about me. I'm sorry.
Not this time. I wasn't talking about you this time. But Michael Jordan, LeBron James, their connection with the numbers, right? LeBron decided to stop wearing 23 out of reverence and respect for Michael Jordan. And what number did he put on? Drum roll, please. Number 6. This week, another one of the greats. I think Magic Johnson was the one who said it, that Adam Silver in the NBA should retire the number 6 across the entire league. I'll ask you, ETP, Big Flo, do you think that's an idea that Adam Silver and NBA should run with? Retire the number 6 throughout the league, paying respect for Bill Russell.
I'm comfortable with it. I think that would be that's something that I think is worthy.
ETP, I'll throw it to you. Is that something you think that they should do? And then you give us final word on Bill Russell before we change topics.
I definitely think, Major League Baseball retired Jackie Robinson's 42 across the entire league. Obviously, Bill Russell didn't integrate the NBA, but he was integral in terms of really gaining respect as Black athletes to be he integrated, the head coaching position of the NBA, first Black starting 5, just the way that he pioneered, and no greater winner, no greater champion. And he represented the league and brought the league forward, right? Like he was a generation, he represented an entire generation of championships. So I think just his impact on and off the court warrants it. I think that it should happen. I think that if it doesn't happen, it'll be very easy that this just becomes a blip, and then we may forget about the impact Bill Russell had down the road. But the NBA needs to honor him in a pretty substantial way. I know they named the MVP trophy after him, the Finals MVP trophy, which obviously he deserves. But I do think that he's made more of an impact, so much so that nobody should ever actually wear the number, because he's done everything that needed to be done in that number.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and switch topics. But I'll say right before we do, an earlier comment, because we love it when you comment. Please keep on commenting, like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. But keep the comments coming, those who are watching the live recording of the podcast. But an earlier comment said, if he was white, referring to Bill Russell, if he were white, he would be the logo. And one of the old games we watched was against the Lakers and Jerry West. And while whoever made that comment, again, thank you for the contribution, didn't know that they were going to be the last soundbite of this topic. Isn't that saying something? If he were white, he'd be the logo. That's the America that we live in, man. And, in this episode of Silent Moments, salute to you, Captain, for never being silent on the racist society that we have to figure out and thrive in. And you did that and then some, and made it possible for Michael, Jeffrey Jordan, and LeBron James. You made it possible for them to have the platform that they have and then enjoy the game and the riches there too, because of your sacrifices. So we salute you, sir. Life well lived, job well done.
So, fun fact, as we go out, backup center for Bill Russell for 2 years, I think, was John Thompson. So because he was never able to get any playing time, he quit the NBA and ended up being one of the greatest college coaches in history as a result. So because Bill Russell was so great, John Thompson never got to really establish his NBA career and instead became one of the greatest basketball coaches that ever lived.
And there was only 6 other teams he could have went to. So he decided, man, if I can't be him, or him, I'm out.
Hey, Bill Russell is a gift that keeps giving. There's no easy way to transition from Bill Russell and his greatness to any other topic. But here on the Ball Hog Sports Talk, we try to cover various topics in sports, business, and entertainment. And this particular topic we have covered for a while. From the very beginning, at the outset, we were baffled by the fact that the equivalent of, and I don't want to make sure, from a basketball standpoint and a hierarchy or who's the best in the game, from an equivalent of that, right? You've got probably the second, definitely top 5 currently, and maybe historically top 10 women's basketball player ever that is being detained in a hostile region of the world. And we weren't even talking about it in this country. We've been talking about it on this show for a while. And we said the same thing. Like if you look at the boxes that she checks, the communities that she represents, some of the people that have been woke in those communities for topics a lot less, in my humble opinion, severe and meaningful than this, we were baffled at the silence. In this episode of Silent Moments, we were baffled by the silence as it pertained to Brittney Griner. Now, as everyone laughed it off and said no big deal, and her wife is made pleas, and her teammates have made pleas, and we tried to keep it sort of under the radar as we discussed what the State Department was going to do and how the negotiations were going to play out. We've had conversations about whether or not the trade that was being proposed for an arms dealer was really worth it. After all of that, we hear that Brittney Griner, with I think less than 6 ounces of cartridges, vape cartridges was sentenced to a
No,
whopping
0.7 grams.
I said, what did I say? Ounces. I said
You said
0.7
ounces.
grams.
Points, not even a full gram.
I'm thinking about Iman Shumpert. Sorry, with the ounces.
So for the people out there that don't smoke weed every day, could y'all explain how small it is?
No idea. Not a lot.
Hey, I want y'all to appreciate the fact that B is such a football coach that he keeps drinking water at the house out of a squirt bottle from practice.
Hey, I
Nobody
got
does
at
that.
Dick's until y'all give us some money. I ain't even letting Dick's Sporting Goods, man.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
this is how you know this is my lifestyle. Water up, baby. Water break.
give me some water. They throw him a water bottle. Do you have a 6-pack at the house like that?
You all know I carry the container.
With the caddy, the carrying case.
But look, what do y'all think, man? It's the Brittney Griner thing, getting 9 years in Russia in a hostile region of the world. You hear her I don't know what they call it in their trial process, but on tape, she's basically saying that, you know, she pled guilty. She's gonna own up to her mistakes, and it looked like a hostage video, to be honest. And I don't even want to laugh when I say that. Like, from a psychological standpoint, she's gonna have to have real therapy when she gets back. Like, that was frightening to watch the video. And now 9 years for hashish cartridges, cannabis cartridges. I don't. This is so tragic to me, and I feel like the silent moments that we had leading up to this allowed for this to happen. And the more we act like this isn't a problem, says something about us. We just came from talking about Bill Russell, who never had a silent moment when it pertained to speaking up for the community and doing, like Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do what's right, and Bill Russell owned it. How many of us have owned it when it comes to Brittney Griner? We've talked about it on this show, and now we're looking at this 9 years, how daunting that seems. And I know there are probably negotiations going on. I'm assuming they wanted the penalty, the sentencing phase to be so drastic that when the negotiation is taking place, right now you're negotiating knowing that if this doesn't go through, if we're not successful here, this young lady is going to spend 9 years in a Russian jail.
She gonna do it too, because that businessman been over there for 4. I don't know what he did, but they're trying to get him and the business. They're trying to get her and the businessman out. And Russia will let you serve that time too. And I bet you their time is mean too. I bet you that is.
I don't think you can't envision a sentence or a prison setting in Russia that, you know, is like Club Fed here, which is feed up white collar crimes. You can't imagine that. You can't envision that. Every time I hear Russian prison, horrible images come to mind. So I don't know where I just wanted to bring it up. 9 years. What do we do? To me, as a country, if we're really gonna be virtue signaling all the damn time, all you very convenient woke folk, I feel as though like all bets are off. All resources, like, we need to bring this young lady home. Yeah. And to think that she is currently, in terms of current players, at least top 5. If not, statistically, she was top 2 last season. Think about that if that was an NBA player. Yeah. Insert Kevin Durant there.
But it's interesting, like,
if it was the person who's the runner-up in the Oscars. Let's think of it from an acting standpoint. I don't know who got second. Or musicians, the Grammys. Let's think who's the second best musician. And you put a white face on them people, we wouldn't have heard about anything else.
Actually, in that case, when it comes to star status, black, white, Mexican, I don't know. I think if they were really popular, I just think the WNBA show speaks to the WNBA's lack of popularity or whatever. But I mean, at this point, American is American, right? I don't give a damn what they do. We should try to get them back. But you see Russia's trying to ask for Poland to release this terrorist now. Yeah. They're going to play some games with this thing, man. This isn't going to go easy.
Yeah. I mean, they got the upper hand. I guess the thing for me is ultimately Russia has the upper hand, right? And if they're gonna apply any more pressure to the situation, like, you're threatening a world war, right? Over over an individual. And I guess the question is like, is LeBron worth a world war? Is
we don't want that
Serena Williams worth a world war? Is Tiger Woods worth a world war? Is, any other, is
Jack Bauer,
Shohei Ohtani worth a world war? That's the question. Like, because ultimately Russia's like, no, we're going through our process. We're sticking it out and we'll trade with you. But if it becomes too contentious, like it's teetering on global conflict. So I guess it's a question of, is there somebody popular enough? Is it, Lionel Messi or Ronaldo or, someone else that's globally recognized where you're going to get pressures from all of other countries, not just the US. So that, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's, we could speculate and say, oh, if it was LeBron, he'd be home. If it was Kevin Durant, I don't know. Like, I don't really know how you play this. Like, how do you play this? That's what I mean. Like, Russia's just trying to get what they want.
Don't care. They don't care. If they cared, they with all the outcry, they wouldn't be in the war there and now. If they cared, they don't care. I don't know. I don't see us going to war over anybody right now. I don't think, maybe the top percentage of athletes like a LeBron or something like that. But like,
y'all out y'all mind. Put Susan Lucci from All My Children in that situation. We going to war.
No, we're not.
Susan,
you out your mind. Put what's my man name?
I bet you we wouldn't go to war over Andrew Wiggins.
Nah, I ain't going to. If that's the way
Susan Lucci?
Susan Lucci.
He had to Google it too. That's the best part. He was like,
Nah, I know All My Children, man. My mom used to make me watch that. I knew All My Children. I'll be real upset that's not her name. I'm pretty sure that's her name.
It doesn't matter because nobody knows. So we're like, yeah, sure.
Dave Matthews. Put anybody.
Dave Matthews. We're not going to war over Dave Matthews.
We're going to war. And I dare you to put one of the greats like, Bruce Springsteen or somebody. We going to war. What are you talking about?
We need a covert Jack Bauer mission. Sneak in, sneak out. Got a gunfire. Maybe send a film crew just so we can make a movie out of it. But we're not going to war for nobody. There's no appetite to go to war with Russia.
World war,
Russia.
World war. We talk. Let's do this. Watch this. Watch this. Now, I promise you, if you're honest with yourself, I promise you're going to answer yes. Because you got on that Celtics hat. We talked about the celebration of the Celtics. Who's their guy? Who you said pre and post what?
Larry Bird.
If Larry Bird was over there,
we'll go to war probably.
We're going to war over Larry Bird.
Probably. we at least send a
she's Larry Bird.
SEAL team in there.
I don't know about
man.
War. We're talking about a straight war, like a straight world superpower war.
There's zero chance
over an athlete. Come on, dog.
Maybe Larry Bird. Maybe Larry Bird 20 years ago too. They
would go to war over Larry Bird now. Who can't?
Man, the United States loves white people. They don't want to go to war over one white person.
Hey, I
don't care who it is.
Hey, not only would they go to war, they would have people enlisting. They have old white dudes in the back farms of Indiana saying, I still got one good shot left in me. I'll shoot me one of them terrorists. I'm telling you, man, we would go to war.
They don't like the Joker that much because he's not from here.
Yeah, you can't go to current white players because they all from Europe. I'm talking about corn-fed, American-bred white boys. We going to war. What are you talking about?
It depends. Not with Russia though.
Jerry West is the logo.
We're not fighting Russia for nobody. No way.
Man,
no.
Hell nah. You know what?
You give all the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all as many of them as you want over there. We're not gonna have a world war.
Hey, I'm going to war.
Parnell said it. Aaron
Rodgers, all right, damn, fine. Tom Brady, we're going to war.
We're going to war.
War. We have heavy negotiations. We would release the terrorists for him, but we would not go to war.
We are y'all tripping, man. Y'all better wake up in this white world.
Poland. They're trying to get a three-way trade. Poland got nothing to do with this. They're like, tell Poland let the terrorists go.
A 3-team trade.
What is this?
Draft
what the hell
picks.
Poland got to do with it? If Tom Brady was there, we in the still of the night, we would try to get the terrorists out and then just deny it. Because part of we could just do that too. Just don't cover it.
My man Jay Crit, you did catch that. Them Boston boy bands. What y'all got going over there in Boston?
Yo,
man?
I did not say New Kids on the Block. NSYNC is not from Boston. Backstreet Boys, I don't know where they
So
from,
let's
but they're not
substitute
from
Backstreet
Boston.
Boy. Which one is from Boston? New Kids on the Block?
New Kids on the Block.
All right, so let's say
New Edition.
New Kids on the Block is over there versus New Edition. New Kids on the Block, we going to war. New Edition, we taking pictures and we like, hey man, Bobby, at least we ain't got to mess with Bobby.
We putting some money on their books. It was like, yo, we hold you down. We hold you down for 9 years.
Like if they were detained just for traveling and they just grabbed them, it's different. But when you throw to like, well, she had some weed, you shouldn't have had the weed. That makes it easier for people to not support. But like, let's say they just grabbed her off the court because it's a hostage situation. Because all right, you guys are giving support to Ukraine, so we're gonna just take somebody. I think it would be a little bit of a different attitude.
I don't know that look, and no one has. Here's my challenge, because people do like to throw that in there. Yeah, well, but she was.
It gives them a chance to just get up and go to work.
At 6'8", openly gay, professional basketball player in Russia. You've got such a target on your back when you're walking through an airport in Russia that I'm not saying, I don't want to be no conspiracy theorist and say she didn't have any of the cartridges with her. What I'm saying is if the decision was to create a situation, then they created a situation. Let's not act like she was out there selling cartridges in the bathroom airport trying to get other people high. We live in a country now that for the most part, in several states, they have legalized it. So yes, it was wrong. It was illegal if indeed she did it. But the fact that I still got to add if indeed she did it says to me that this is way too minor and trivial to take someone at this point several months, take their liberty and freedom away for several months, and then, God forbid, they actually sentence her. Well, they already sentenced her, but they actually make her serve 9 years for that. Come on, y'all. We tripped.
All of them.
And meanwhile, in America, we was up in arms because the old buddy in Singapore got caned. People were more upset about that than Brittney Griner.
Look,
yeah, but he caught it.
And to be fair, he had 3 canings, and we got it negotiated down to 2. You know how bad those canings have to be that we could get them just because I guess when they hit you, it hurts so bad, it knocks you out, and then they revive you and get you way back. So they had negotiated it down. I don't know if it was 3-2 or 4-3 or whatever. Right. But he got whooped. You got to respect that. I don't know, man. That's I might.
Yeah, and Jay Crit says it perfectly. He says Russia is fooling themselves if they think America gives a damn about a queer black woman. They are fooling themselves, and that is a very sour pill to taste. But after the last several months, and we've talked about it ad nauseum here on this show, and then hearing the reaction or lack thereof of her being sentenced 9 years makes me feel as though Jay Crit hit the nail on the head with that one. They're fooling themselves. So I think she's going to end up serving 9 years, which is heartbreaking.
I think so too. I think she might.
That's heartbreaking. Let's hop on to another heartbreaking story, at least for me. Deshaun Watson is still being litigated, if you will, because we know that Judge Sue, whatever her name is, I wanted to say Sue Bird because somebody said her. The judge, who was independent in her analysis, gave Deshaun Watson 6 games. This particular Browns fan got excited. I was like, look, 6 games. We put us, you know what I mean? We just make it through the 6 games. Let's try to go 3-3 and see if we can get done and bring Deshaun Watson in there. And I was thinking purely from a football standpoint. But the NFL, I think, is really grappling with the perception. It's grappling with the precedent that this sets. Or the precedent that it follows. So now the NFL is getting their appeal process in place. Roger Goodell will not hear their appeal. It was just decided yesterday that Peter Harvey, former Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, when he was in that role, he's one of 2 black attorney generals. He happens to be a man of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Good brother. He is now going to hear the appeal. And a lot of conspiracy theorists think that it's just a matter of time before that 6 goes up to at least a season. Where do we go from here? And in the biggest strike of irony or the fact that God has a great sense of humor, the massage therapy conference is being held in Cleveland this year.
Shut up.
Yes, National Massage
He should
Therapist
sponsor
Conference.
Do you think is that tacky or is that appropriate if he sponsors it?
Yeah, I feel like he
At
should.
least
At
get a
this
booth.
point,
Maybe get a booth.
the NFL wants him to get more games. They want him to pay more money, and they want him to get counseling. I imagine he's already gotten counseling. I don't like when any organization or any institution tries to publicize the fact that there's required counseling, because it then just gives a more stigma to counseling. But anyway, I digress. Deshaun Watson, I thought 6 games were appropriate, but again, I was looking at it as a fan. I think the response that a lot of women who have heard the story have had, I think is indicative of the problem that the NFL has had for so long. You got domestic violence violators, people that beat on their wives and their girlfriends that have gotten less than 6 games. And so the NFL is faced with this mess. And Chris Canty did a good job of talking about the precedent and saying that you can't create the precedent that you're not holding the owners to. So many owners have been guilty of activities that would be demeaning and destructive and potentially dangerous to women, yet you don't hear much about it. And so I guess the NFL has this problem, not in setting the precedent, but the fact that the precedent has been set and that this judge in the process followed the precedent, despite saying that she found a lot of problematic things related to Deshaun Watson's behavior. I'm hoping it goes away and he can just play football, but it doesn't seem as though that's going to happen. The NFL is going to appeal. Do you think that Deshaun ultimately gets more games? And do you think that that is the right solution?
Let me answer your question with the question. Do you think the NFL really wants to suspend him more? Do you really think that? Or do you think that they say, well, let's act like we want it to be worse, hope that they lose? The NFL doesn't care. They want him on the field. He's good for the sport as far as, wins, and they want their talent on the field. But he gets 6 games. The NFL argues and say, no, we want it to be more games and we want him to spend all this money. We want to do whatever. And if they lose, they say, well, blame the arbitrator. Blame the independent people. We tried to make it worse. Women, we stood up for you. We didn't want this to happen. But what can we do? We were hamstrung. We went to, we had this independent thing. They can stand in front of this thing and say, great. If they just accept it and say, okay, back to go to work, then they get all the criticism. I don't think they want him suspended. Worse, they just might as well just talk about it, though. They got 6 games to worry about it.
I just don't. And my man Crompton, what's up, Dre? Notre Dame, man, appreciate you coming into the Ball Hawk Sports Talk experience this morning, my brother. He does say that he says he's not sure there's any appropriate suspension for 27 sexual assaults. But and again, let me
it's not
disclaimer.
Even a quarter of a game for each one.
Disclaimer. I do not condone any sexual misconduct. Period. New paragraph. But we can't call them 27 sexual assaults. At this point, we still got to call them allegations.
Well,
because there's
20 of them. But he settled with 20 of them, right?
A settlement is a business decision.
But I mean, I'm saying is there's no active allegations with those 20 at this point, right? Like, I guess how do you perceive it?
There were 20, I think 24 of the 25 civil suits have been settled. And if I'm off by one. All but one. There's one person that's holding the biggest doggone chip on the table. Well, that's a bargaining chip there. So I know you done settled all the other ones. And here I am just waiting on
block that won't sell.
She gonna ask for a liver. She gonna be like, I want all your money and your liver. I just want one on ice just in case I got a bad liver one day. She can ask for anything at this point. But what I don't have is, through the criminal process, confirmation by way of the word guilty, or we could even take a few steps back by way of the criminal proceedings. There were not one, but 2 grand juries that decided not to indict him. I just feel like at some point we have gotten out of the realm of being fair. And again, I'm saying as a Browns fan, how many different levels of litigation is he going to face? Now it's the court of public opinion. I agree with you, Big Flo Show. This is all about the court of public opinion. But at some point in this world, and we talked about the beginning of the show about Bill Russell fighting for our rights, at some point as a black man, like, bro, let me move on with my life too. Especially if you let the owners move on so quickly and readily after doing stuff that would be a lot more salacious if you really looked at it. I don't know. It just feels like we should allow the process to take place. The 6 games, while you might not have loved it, you should have loved the process that you put in place. There is an appeal mechanism, so they are still just following the process. But it seems like at this point we are litigating him in the court of public opinion. What do you guys think?
Well, I guess the question is, so now they're going to appeal it, which means he gets to play until they rule, right? So
chances are Cleveland, he can play week 1. But if I'm representing him, I'm saying don't.
But does Cleveland sit him? But does Cleveland just continue to sit him rather than open up that can of worms in the court of public opinion and be like, all right, we're in the appeal process, and we're just gonna play as if everything's fine? Like, what do you do in that situation? Like, I think sounds like he's just not gonna play for another season at least, because if I'm the Browns organization, one, I wouldn't have signed him, but if I have him and I was planning to play him, I'm not gonna. I mean, the Texans, they sat him the whole season without any, true penalty, but they sat him until they found out what the verdict was, until they could trade him. Does Cleveland play him while they're going through the appeal? Like, it's almost like time served.
If I'm Cleveland, I say hell yeah, because
play him.
Because, like, as an organization, because it does boil down to, with 17 games, it boils down to if you can get an extra win, that could be the difference in whether or not you're playoff bound or not. If I am Deshaun Watson's camp and I'm really concerned about where do we go from here, I'm concerned about the optics, and I'll say maybe we shouldn't play. But let me say this before I throw it over to Big Flo Show, because I saw you take a little jab at Cleveland for signing Deshaun Watson and becoming a winning franchise immediately with your little quarterback, Matt Jones. Matt Jones, who? Matt Jones. We ain't worried about the Patriots. Don't be taking a little jab at us, bro. We signed our quarterback, and that's my quarterback. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Big Flo Show, what are we doing here, man? Because it looks like it's all about the optics. It looks like it's all about the optics at this point. And at the end of the day, at some point, we got to just move on and let the man, in my humble opinion, he's already sat out a year. The Texans didn't play him. So now we're talking about a season and a half, or a season plus 6 games. Is it time to move on? Or do you think through this appeal process, our brother Peter Harvey, a great Omega man, but the fact that they chose a black arbiter to hear the appeal process lets me know that indeed the NFL is being very careful. They're working this with very careful kid gloves when it comes to optics. But at some point, it's got to be justice. To hell with optics. Whoever don't like it, you don't like it. But fair has to be fair. What do you say?
Again, it's all optics. Nobody really cares, let's be honest, because Robert Kraft is one of the many owners who goes to massage parlors and has favors done for him. And they probably all said, Deshaun, you should have called me. I know just where you could go. Why did you got to call these girls and you don't pick right? But the good old boys club of the NFL owners do not think what he did is a big deal. They don't care. Roger Goodell doesn't care. He's not raping women. He's not out here doing stuff, beating women, doing whatever. Not that they care about that either. They've shown they don't care about that. But, at the end of the day, there's going to be the people who are going to hate the NFL and everything that's toxic masculinity, and they're going to come out and they're going to yell. So at this point, I think if he's allowed to play, and if he's allowed to play and then they come out and they uphold it, they don't have to forfeit the games he played, right? He's allowed to play during the thing. So they play them. They try to win games. Maybe if they find a really sorry week with a injury-prone team, they might pick and choose because he's definitely going to get at least 6, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to go to 0. Are they appealing to make it less than 6 as well? His camp? Is there a dual appeal?
No, I don't
They
think
accepted
so.
the 6, right?
There's no reason.
There's
Yeah,
duality. Yeah, there's duality in the sense that they could have appealed it, and
But
it
they
would have
didn't.
gone
but
through
they
the
didn't.
union. It's not
Yeah,
his camp.
but they
It would have
did
been
not.
NFL. It would have been an NFLPA. The union on their behalf, on his behalf, would have had to appeal the outcome of the process, but the union didn't. I think the union and Deshaun Watson's camp is looking at this like we got to live with whatever the outcome is and move on. But the NFL is indeed appealing it and trying to get more games.
So I think they play him if that's how it works out. Squeeze as many games as you can out of them because if they decide that they want to suspend him for a full year, then you would get half of this year and half of next year. So let's get as many games out of Deshaun as we could possibly get. But at the end of the day, they know that there's bad optics. They know what's going on, and I don't think they care.
Sue Robinson, the judge who made the initial decision on the 6 games, if you read her opinion, I don't even know if you call it an opinion because it was a process, but not necessarily whatever. You read her rationale behind why the 6 games, why she chose the 6 games. She deals with both his actions, the clause itself, and the activities being detrimental. But she also, if you read between the lines, she's acknowledging that there's precedent there. And I think the NFL is trying to pivot and bounce back from the precedent that through previous processes that they've had, other iterations of it, the precedent that they've already set. And if you're going to do that for Deshaun Watson, you got to do it for everybody. And we've had recent examples of owners doing things that would be detrimental, at least to the brand of the Shield. And they didn't go this hard on those owners. So that's my issue with it. We shall see. Any final words on it other than this Brown fan just praying on bended knees every night that this thing goes away? Anybody else?
I mean, personally, just for everybody involved, I would appreciate that it just does have some conclusion, right? Like this getting dragged out. Obviously, there's people who've made these allegations. They may be true, and it's just continuously getting dragged out. So I just imagine that it's getting exhausting for everybody. Deshaun Watson, for the people that have made the allegations, the organization. So I think it's just time to kind of come to a conclusion and then let everybody process that. But as long as this is going to continue to drag on, it's too much for everybody to deal with.
Yeah. My man Jay Crit coming to us from our YouTube channel. Appreciate you, Jay Crit. He says first, who has the law degree? I got it, but I don't like to use it very often. But he says, can you explain the process? Because he's confused. And I'll just give you a summation and say this. The NFL realized it had a problem when the commissioner, I was going to say our commissioner, I ain't in the league anymore, with the NFL commissioner was given the power to be judge, jury, and executioner when it came to off the field behavioral issues that put players in conflict with the clause within that collective bargaining agreement that was behavior detrimental to the league, the team, et cetera, et cetera. They created a new process that allowed for an independent hearing. And the judge who handled that process was an independent person chosen to handle that particular case. Now they have another problem because Roger Goodell, commissioner of NFL, also in this newly designed process had an appeal mechanism. And so they decided that would also look bad because Roger Goodell and the powers that be in the NFL have been very public about warning a very stiff response, a stiff penalty for, pause, pun intended, a very meaningful, very meaningful penalty for Deshaun Watson. So why would you then put a judge's opinion in the hands of Roger Goodell? And so as of yesterday, they decided to, for the appeal, allow another independent attorney picked by the NFL, but doesn't work for the NFL, Peter Harvey, to then hear the appeal. nuanced and detailed, but I think the NFL is trying to evolve and acknowledge that what they've done in the past just doesn't work. Say again.
They'd like to appear as if they're evolving.
They have the appearance is very apparent that they are concerned about how this thing looks in the public eye. So hopefully that was a good enough explanation for you. But it is the saga that continues. Deshaun Watson, after a whole season of wondering what was going to happen in an offseason and a big contract and 2 grand juries and a bunch of civil cases. After all of that, on August 5th, 2022, that's crazy, we are still asking what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. So we shall see. Let's get to a few more topics before going home for the day, man. Like we ask you every week, humbly, please like, please comment, please share, please tag a friend, please tag a foe if you have any. Tag anybody that you know, and please subscribe to both our YouTube channel and to our podcast. This is the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. We do it one way and one way only, rough, rugged, and raw. You got the Big Flow Show coming straight from the Central Time Zone. You got ETP, Ellis the producer. Although he is in the New York City area, he has Boston on his mind and in his heart and on his head with that hat all the time. And I am your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Breezy. That was my pause for the cause for a second. Let's hop into the Dolphins, man. The Dolphins, I'll let you describe the background of the Dolphins. It was alleged through Brian Flores that the Dolphins were engaged in competitive, like trying to throw games, but also tampering was one of the allegations. The tampering situation has caused them some draft picks. I don't know if anybody wants to give us the one-liner on the deal. ETP, you want to just give us a quick summation to I tend not to, as being a South Floridian, I hate the Dolphins, so I don't like talking about them. But can you tell our audience what happened with the Dolphins and their draft picks?
Well, they lost 2 first-round draft picks, of 2022 upcoming, I believe, in a 2024 gaggle of picks, and they were fined, or the owner was fined $1.5 million, and I think he was also suspended for whatever that means as an owner, suspended until like October. But
this was rooted. Watch the game in his owner's box.
Yeah,
you can't profit. That is about the dumbest thing in the world. What does an owner do? You can't own.
Yeah,
right. And the worst part about it, what they really lost, they lost in the grand scheme of things because they stuck with Tua.
Right.
Sorry.
Well,
that was a jab at you, Dolphins.
They're more accurate than Patrick Mahomes, according to Tyreek Hill.
Man, he should have been drug tested.
But this is all, surprise, surprise, this is all centered around none other than the man that would start a world war, Tom Brady. Yeah. Because the Dolphins were tampering and essentially trying to angle for signing Tom Brady in the offseason prior to the Brian Flores accusations. And while they were also trying to recruit, they fired Brian Flores and were trying to recruit Sean Payton. But based on the conversations that they were having out of bounds with Tom Brady, who seems to always find himself in the middle of some controversy, but comes out the fire with no blisters.
No.
But the Dolphins are basically paying the penalty for the next 2 years.
Not only does he come out of the fire with no blisters, think about those options. Somebody trying to get you for the equivalent of like 2 seasons, they were basically trying to talk him into coming down to, he either had to settle after making all of this money, winning all of these rings and marrying a supermodel. He had to settle on either Miami or Tampa. Yo, that brother, man, Tom Brady, man, he keep winning. But the Dolphins in this case are not winning. And this episode of Silent Moments, it just seems as though as we talk about it and what happened with them, the owner Ross still makes out like a bandit. It on the heels of talking about Deshaun Watson that it just never goes away. It just seems as though there is a double standard. And we as a community that sees it, the optics, it just stinks. It's a double standard, and I'll leave it there. We also got to talk about quickly this live golf. We know live golf has created quite the uproar. Phil Mickelson participated, and other players participated, but the PGA is trying to protect the business that is the PGA, because when you got live, and it's very questionable about how live the live golf tour gets its resources. So that in itself is one topic. But having the resources, the live golf tour offered Tiger Woods between $700 and $800 million to go out there with that bad leg and swing a golf club, and the man said no. If you pay me $700 to $800 million to do anything, and I'm talking about anything, it'd be tough.
If you don't believe him,
no.
just try. Offer him.
Yeah, just go ahead. Just that $700, $800 million. What could? There's no way you could say no. I'm gonna look y'all both in the eye. If you say you could say no on the principles that Tiger Woods stood on, I don't care how much money he already got.
No
to turn down $700 to $800 million, I would have changed my name to Live Golf Tour if they offered me that. I'm no longer Tiger Woods. I am the symbol officially known as Live Golf Tour. $700 to $800 million. That's crazy. To swing a golf club.
So to not have $700 to $800 million and be offered it is very different than already having more than $700 to $800 million and getting it offered to you, and the complexity that comes with taking that money and how much other money is going to go away. Like Nike's not going to support, he's going to lose that endorsement. There's other corporate sponsors, I'm sure, that are like, look, if you go over there, we can't support you because the political backlash and all of the effects of that. And he's at the end of his career, right? He's on, 1.5 legs.
But
I don't know that
ETP. If that's the case, if he's at the end of his career, Nike eventually is going to move on anyway. Maybe not Nike, because he's his own vertical when it comes to Nike and the golf thing. But a lot of the opportunities that might go away because of the backlash related to the Live Golf Tour, those opportunities at the end of his career are going away anyway. And you're right that it to have it and have more than it equips you with the power to say no to it. But let's think in smaller numbers. $1,000. If you could, while I got more than $1,000, you come to me and say I give you $1,000, I'm real money. So
that's not a fair comparison. Like if you have $1 billion, if you are a billionaire,
you can afford everything.
Money means nothing. Like you
don't
know the price. You don't know how you listen. If you have $1,000, you know how much a loaf of bread costs. I would guarantee you, Tiger Woods has no idea how much a loaf of bread costs. Doesn't know how much a Mercedes-Benz costs.
Looked at something and said, "Nah, it's too much." You know what I mean?
He tried to buy the planet Earth once, and he couldn't afford it.
They told him he needed 2 people more, and he'd be straight. That's the thing. At this point, Tiger has lived his life trying to support trying to fit in and be accepted by the general golf community, right? Fair. He's not going to go. I mean, he calls himself Blasian. He doesn't even want to completely claim black. He doesn't want to do this. Not that you shouldn't claim all your races, but he wants to blend in and do whatever. He doesn't, he hangs out with Trump. He don't do anything that the coalition would support, right? Now, if he leaves, if he goes to live, he wants the PGA to thrive. This is where he's made his history. This is where he's made his mark. Why would he do a move for any dollar amount when you're already a billionaire that could hinder the legacy of what he's trying to create? What if the PGA ends up? What if everyone goes to live and the PGA folds up? He hasn't. I mean, I don't know how many records does he need to make history now.
He's got to win another major. That's not gonna happen.
Okay, but in his life, if he can win this one more major, I'd rather do that and get my legacy and do that than crush this whole thing, leave and be ostracized by the people I've been dying to be accepted by for all this time. So, and for what? There's nothing more he can do with this money. He has $1 billion, and it's not like he's $1 billion and he's done earning, right? He still makes money. He does golf course design stuff, making bread. He still has all the Nike stuff. So it's $1 billion and growing. So for what? When is he the last time? Even after his wife took half, he got to a B by himself.
I can give you between 700 and 800 million reasons why. That's why for me. Matter of fact, with between 700 and 800 million extra $1 million, you could buy Black Twitter. We would look. I will call myself. What's the term? Coblination.
Nothing for
call
it.
me Coblination, bro. I'm good. You could buy Black Twitter with between 700, 800 extra.
Right, he could do that now if he wanted to. But like, what does it matter? What does it matter?
Yeah. So y'all think he made the right call? All right, cool.
I don't know if he made the right call. All I'm saying is, I can imagine. I mean, the reason why I'll probably never have that much money is because I don't want to put in the work to get that much money. Like, I'll get off an exit a lot sooner and be like, y'all never going to hear from me ever again. I don't need that much money.
Man, look, this is one of them times, because I know y'all both personally, man. For $700, $800, you would go punch somebody randomly. For $700, $800 million, man, I don't know. But I digress. Let's talk about the legal components to it, because there's now this antitrust.
Wait, hold on. What's the difference between 100 million? Like, what would you do differently with a 700 million versus 100 million? What would be different in your life?
With 100 million, right?
Don't say that. That's not fair. What would you do with 700 million or $1 billion different? Because you already got the billion.
Yeah, I mean, that's
100 million. There's some levels to this shit.
I just don't know that I would be any different after 100 million. After 100 million, I will have wasted. I could have blown as much money doing everything I wanted to do and still have like $93 million left.
He already cut off all the people who was riding, right? He paid off and kept who he wants. It just, at some point, you can only have so many houses, so many cars. He has everything he wants. He has it.
Man, I could take the high road and say something like, if you're a billionaire, you go to a 1.7 billionaire, you could take that 0.7 and try to solve world hunger, and there's so much good in it. I could take the high road to say that. But I we do it rough, rugged, and raw. With that extra $700 million, I walk around and slapping people in the face. I've been tired of you for a long time. I will buy Black Twitter.
He was doing that at $1 billion. Stop.
I would trademark the term Coblination. I would walk around and proverbially show my you know what. That's what I would do. I'm sick of y'all always talking about, man, I got an extra 700 million.
So you think that the $1 billion wouldn't make you brand new, but the extra 300 million after taxes would make you brand new. That would be the difference.
That's the top.
Yeah, you'd be an everyday. You'd be the people's champ at $1 billion.
and that's why they.
But then you turn into Dr. Evil at 1.3.
Hey, what Rick James say? That's why they shouldn't have never gave y'all no money. But now they got the backlash on the Live Tour, because the players that did decide to take the bread, like I would have done, they are now trying to sue the PGA, saying antitrust case, and saying that they're preventing them from making this thing. And Phil Mickelson it's basically Phil Mickelson and the Pips when it comes to the people who did it. Phil Mickelson being the biggest name. Do y'all think there's some there? Is the PGA in trouble of some antitrust violation because they won't let these golfers go and make a living playing golf, although it is in a different region? And is this a real antitrust issue, do you think, or is this just something that they're doing because it'll help protect their legacies? Because you're right, from a legacy standpoint, when it comes to the PGA, when it comes to American sports conversations, their legacy is tainted a bit by being involved with this Live Golf Tour. Do you think that the PGA is in trouble of being in violation of some antitrust laws?
I would assume that they don't. The fact that they would even bring suit would make me believe that they don't sign any exclusive deals with the PGA. There's really been all the other tours are so much beneath the PGA that I can't even remember the names of them. So I don't think they would ever have to worry about telling somebody what they can, where they can and can't golf. So this is uncharted ground. I do think it's bad that, people went golfed and live and you just kicked them out the PGA and banned them. What other participation gets you banned? And it sounds like banned for life from golfing and something.
Yeah.
I think it's super antitrust. I think they win.
I think so too. ETP, last word on it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is the PGA in trouble of being in violation of antitrust laws as we see them here in the country?
I mean, I guess it's a little bit murky, right? But yeah, I mean, if they're preventing collaboration or participation because they are, in another league, but at the same time, every sports organization actually, or sports property has this, right? Like you can't be in the UFC and go fight Bellator, right? Like you have a contract with the UFC. So
Right.
there is exclusivity. I don't know the terms of their agreements, but basically it's as if the live golfers are trying to bend or break the model of what happens with traditional sports organizations, whether there is a competitor or not. Like, you can't be an NBA player and go play in Australia for the NBL. Like you have an exclusivity and you have a commitment based on your relationship to that organization. So I don't know, because they're suing the PGA for not letting them in versus suing Live for not letting them out, right? So that's the piece where this is kind of uncharted territory. I don't necessarily think that they're going to win it, because the PGA, I mean, it's home court for them, right? Like they've been around for 100 years. They have, every judge in this country probably plays golf. Like I don't imagine that there's going to be any, advantage to Live, the Saudi Arabian,
right,
backed golfers coming in and trying to sue an American institution just to let them play. So maybe they'll come to an agreement. They're not getting any money. Maybe they'll give them some type of waiver or something to participate in the lesser tournaments or something like that. Yeah. But
I think
I don't think they're going to win.
This is more legacy than money. So we'll see.
I did a quick little search, so I don't have a lot of. So if somebody finds out I'm wrong, I apologize. Just a quick search, but it says that the golfers do not have contracts with the PGA. They just having a PGA card allows you to play in the tournament you choose to. Because if you think about it, if you look at the UFC, if you look at the NBA, there's all this structure, right? In UFC, they tell you who you're going to fight and do whatever. PGA, you just have the ability to golf when you want to golf and not golf when you don't want to golf. And eventually you can not get your card. But people don't. They don't say
requirements. But the requirements and eligibility for the card itself, I think, is where they're saying that you are now, your card has been revoked, as we say in the hood. Well, I'm gonna revoke your card. Right. So
So they'll probably revise. They'll probably settle something short term, and then it'll provoke the PGA to be like, okay, now we have to have some level of structure and restriction around.
Right.
Like they're gonna correct for it, and they may pay the penalty of being too porous in the way that they operate. Right. And they're going to change that. And then they're going to be like, here's your bag. Don't ever come back to me again asking for money because we changed the policy and now there's exclusivity.
I would like to think so. My man, Jomo Davis, first of all, thanks for joining us this morning in the Ball Hog Sports Talk experience. But he says that I would not take the $700 million. He knows my principles. I would like to think so. But I'm going to go ahead and go out there, man. I got vulnerabilities and I'm vulnerable. You say 700, 800 million. Man, I'm walking around that money. I'm smacking people.
Kiss my grits. I'll take the money.
Shut up. You talk about in silent moments. It's an interesting strategy to just take 700, 800 million, slap somebody in the face. You're going to make sure they silent. I'm tired of listening to you. Let's go home on this, man. Because to me, this was there's two stories. I'll start with this. Unfortunately, Paige Bueckers, who for most people's money would be considered the best college player, women's college player going into the season, unfortunately tore her ACL. This is the second time she's had issues with the same knee. So we ain't gonna do a moment of silence because she's not dead, but we are gonna wish her well. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Hope she has a not speedy because you got to take time to get your ACL back. But we hope she has a full recovery and continues her amazing basketball career.
So can she redshirt so she can shirt this year?
She probably takes a medical. Now I mean, yes, she can redshirt, but technically, I think Paige she came in the year of COVID, so I don't think eligibility is her problem. She got more than enough years left. She'll be fine.
Well, I guess it's a question of will she maximize her eligibility to stay in college, given that she's making a ton of money off NIL, or does she go?
I think the case test, because she is making a lot of money off of NIL deals, so she doesn't have to necessarily skip eligibility to go make, in some cases, what might be less money if you're comparing NIL opportunities versus just the WNBA salary. Now she'll get more endorsements and more marketing and opportunities outside of basketball once she is in the WNBA. But if we're comparing just WNBA salary to opportunities this young lady has had in the NIL space, she doesn't have any financial pressure to go on to the WNBA.
But I think it might actually even be more lucrative for her to stay in the most, the biggest women's college basketball brand in the country.
Absolutely.
Than to, be one of, to be on the, Indiana Fever or, whatever WNBA team. So I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? Because
it's only right for Connecticut to bring that young lady in. I'm assuming Connecticut still has their son.
But I mean, she could make more money on UConn than she could.
Oh yeah.
Because she has more reach. There's a bigger audience for UConn basketball.
Do you think somebody who has the endorsements when they're playing for UConn that gets drafted in WA loses the endorsements?
I don't think they lose it, but they lose the reach, right? Because UConn women's basketball is arguably probably gets the most awareness of any women, any amateur or pro women's basketball franchise, right?
Yes.
So because of that, the brands are going to throw more money at a player that plays for the UConn Huskies because they've got March Madness and they're always talked about and they've been undefeated for 50,000 years and all of the cachet that comes with that versus, she was a lottery pick that now plays for the Seattle Storm and
I
we can't even find the games.
I get where you're going, but if you actually have those contracts in place,
no, I don't think they give you less money. I don't.
Let's say she has a Nike deal now, or Beats by Dre, contract for $200,000 a year. Do you think when she gets drafted, they're like, no, we got to cut that down to 100?
No, but they don't reinvest. Right. They don't increase the investment, but it's always a calculation, right? Because if she starts to decline in terms of her marketability, then they're not going to renew the deals.
Unfollow her.
And the NIL deals, you got to remember the NIL deals, and most schools have made sure that they're a part of the process, but it's an actual agreement with terms and a duration. And normally, that duration and term is going to be connected to and correlated with your eligibility at that school while playing.
Absolutely.
So
right, but to the point of the question is like, okay, she's got a StockX deal and other deals right now. If she goes to the WNBA, are they going to scale back? I don't think they're going to scale back, but at the same time, if she starts to decline from a marketability standpoint, they're not going to renew. They're not, they're going to
based upon the knee. Are you talking about, or based upon
based upon her celebrity?
Yeah.
So the thing about it is, I think a lot of this is based off of social media followers and likes. So the good thing about it is once you get a like or a follow, have you ever unfollowed somebody? Have you ever went and actually said, let me stop following?
I unfollowed you last night. I'm so sick of you, but yeah.
You know what though? That's cool because you were holding me back anyway, right? Wait till you see me grow without you. But the bottom line is like people, they're following her and then there's going to be more followers because she's in the WNBA that maybe didn't follow that. So from that standpoint, I can't really see how she loses it. But it's a very interesting topic. I think we should research a little bit more.
But we've been talking about NIL. And we get to this point. And before I do, for those of you who are watching, please, please, please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody you know. Please subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube page. But you might want to pay close attention. For those who are still in the live audience, you might want to pay close attention to this segment because this is, on this episode of Silent Moments, this is the story of the week. And the story of the week in all of sports, in my humble opinion, the biggest story in all of sports, business, entertainment, the story that the Ball Hawk Sports Talk came together like, we gotta cover this one. We saved it for last. We buried the lead all the way to the end because we saved the best for last on this story. My man, the myth, the legend, he who shall be referred to as first name, Decoldest, middle name, Ever to Do It, last name, Crawford. You heard that right.
Needs no last name.
Needs no last.
Last name. Oh, so Crawford. Oh, not Johnson. Okay.
I
thought
that
Decoldest Johnson.
You talking about that Decoldest? I ain't want to confuse him with the other Decoldest. His last name, he should have changed his last name to an exclamation point. Decoldest, first name. To Ever Do It, middle name. The last name should have just been an exclamation point. My man has the best NIL deal going. He got an NIL deal from basically an air conditioning and heating company. If that ain't perfect for college football, he ended up in Nebraska. I think initially he signed with somebody else.
No, he was going to go to LSU. He decommitted.
He ended up changing. I don't like to say
they weren't cold enough for him.
He wasn't cold enough.
It's too hot down there.
The coldest. You better stop playing with me. The coldest got the best NIL deal yet. This is what it's supposed to be about. I love whoever came up with this concept. The coldest is going to be a spokesperson for an air conditioning company. I promise I wish I was in the Omaha area. I would get my air conditioning service I want to shake these people's hand. This is the best NIL deal. I know that this episode is silent moments, but the coldest say it nice and loud, proud with his chest. The man's name is Decoldest, and he got the coldest NIL deal going. Love it. Celebrate.
Yeah. Let this be a lesson to anybody with aspiring athletes in their homes or planning on having kids. Name your children the Nike, Toyota, State Farm, Crypto.com. Get that money.
That's where it's going.
Hey, but he better turn into something. Because if you're just a garbage collector or somebody working at the store and that's your whole name,
yeah,
you're gonna have a long life.
You gotta share the rankings.
The story, yeah. So this was funny when Decoldest kind of hit the scene a couple years ago with the name. I'm looking through the rankings one day, and rankings don't mean nothing. I always mean that, but I'm looking to find my son, and my son was ranked like the 45th receiver in the nation, and right under him was the 46th receiver was Decoldest Crawford. I was like, man, my son is one colder than Decoldest. That's fantastic. If there's nothing else I can say about him, he's at least one colder than Decoldest.
Hey, I think
1 degree colder.
1 degree colder. The coldest to me.
The coldest mailman.
The cold.
You know what I'm saying? It only works when you play sports. He just went all in. It's like giving him a face tattoo at birth.
Yeah.
Like you gotta make it, you gotta do something that they pay you for entertainment.
I think that they should give you you can change someone's name, but we gotta have a longer time period. I mean, they ask you, what is this baby's name? I'm talking about like hours after the child is born. Before you leave the hospital, you're supposed to have everything signed, had a name. I think they should at least let us take them through a few workouts. Let's get them to like 5, 6 years old. Let's see what their balance look like. Does the boy have vert? How big is his hands? How big are her feet? We got to figure out whether or not they're going to be an athlete or not before we give them a name like the coldest to ever do it, Crawford. Shout out to their parents for doubling down on it. They really believed that they had the coldest to ever do it as a child. Man, shout out to them. That's confidence right there, baby. That's confidence. I love it. I love to see the NIL deal with the HVAC company or the air conditioning company. Any last words for the coldest before we move on for the day?
See you in Ireland.
Yeah, that's right. Because they okay. Oh, you talking? So you got nerve to talk? Oh, so now don't try to say. I know it's
see who
silent
the
moments.
coldest is in Ireland. That's our first game, baby.
Say it with your chest. So you think y'all gonna
Is that
handle
what
the
it is?
coldest?
Northwestern Nebraska. That's the game.
In Ireland.
Northwestern Nebraska, first college football game of the year, baby. We're gonna find out who the coldest is. We're gonna find out who really the coldest is. Bring your best, baby. Bring your best.
Bring.
Up.
I would say bring your lunchbox, but here I'm gonna say bring your HVAC because the coldest.
Bring your ice chest.
Right. Bring your heating and cooling.
Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna match up.
When I first heard that, I just put my head down, because we embarrassed sometimes by like Tiger Woods calling himself Complanasian or whatever he called. But when I first heard that this man's name is the coldest ever, I just put my head down and shook my head. But shout out to his parents for not assimilating, man. Be who we are, all authentic, all proud. The man, the coldest, because of his authenticity, got a great NIL deal. Good for him. Parting shots. This episode of the Silent Moments is coming to an end. We'll start in the Central Time Zone. What we going home with before we get out of here in this episode of Silent Moments? Anything you want to give to our amazing, beautiful? All y'all ain't beautiful. Some of y'all don't even look.
Hey, I just want to give a huge shout out. I'm about to make that trek to Canton to see the enshrinement of my former teammate. I like to say the man that kept me off the field, Bryant Young, and finally getting into the Hall of Fame. I think this is his third time on the ballot. Real proud to say I played with this brother. He's a great football player, great man. He's gone through some family struggles, losing a child to brain cancer.
Yeah.
He shows so much strength in that moment and continues to show strength in that as a family unit. Helps me become a better father and better man. Just pleasure to know you and to play with you, man. Can't wait to see you this weekend.
BY, congratulations, man. He dominated on that defensive line. And the man, he ended up coaching my nephew when my nephew was at Florida, because he was also a college coach. Through his strength and power, he's been an example to all of us. But through his strength and power on the field, he has absolutely earned that gold jacket, man. Congratulations to you, BY. I don't know him that person. I didn't play with him. I was after him at Notre Dame. But he has always been really remarkably kind every time I met him, man. A gentle giant who is getting his roses, man. So enjoy that. I'm sure it's going to be a good reunion with a lot of the Notre Dame guys, man. Just remember, my brother, you ain't 21 no more. You ain't 21 no more, Big Flo. ETP, let's go home with whatever you got. With your Celtics hat on the day that we celebrated Bill Russell. Anything you want to give to the audience before we get out of here?
Just enjoy the rest of the summer. It's going fast. Football started back up, so it's going to be snowing before we know it. So just enjoy the nice weather.
Don't kill my buzz.
Yo, that's crazy that they already had a preseason game. The Hall of Fame game was last night. That's why he's got to go out there for the enshrinement. But the Jaguars still look Bubba Dub trash. So I don't know how good the Raiders are, because the Jags still look trash. But football is officially back, which is surreal to think that we are already sort of in the fall. We got preseason games already. Really surreal, man. But great job today, guys. Another great show of the Ball Hog Sports Talk, Silent Moments. And we'll leave you guys with this. We started off talking about moments of silence and how we pay respect to the lives and the legacy that people have lived. I think we tried to do that with Bill Russell, but a lot was a little too late. It's a reminder in the Silent Moments episode that all of us need to celebrate the life that we live, love the people that we truly love, and when people deserve their flowers, go ahead and give it to them in real time, because you never know what tomorrow holds. Life is precious, so enjoy it, and make sure that next Friday you come on back for another episode of the Ball Hog Sports Talk. I am your boy, B Brown, ESQ, aka the Ball Hog, aka the Mouth of the South, aka Mr. Excessive Celebration, aka Breezy, along with the Big Flow Show and ETP. This has been our labor of love that we offer to you. So please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast. It'll cost you nothing, but you'll be helping us tremendously. So in advance, I say thank you. And with that, we is out. Peace.